the one that stands out for me was I remember the first time meeting Michael Jordan.
Huh.
And you feel like you're meeting Black Jesus.
Black Jesus.
Right? And I think it's good that we evolve that way. We have to test ourselves and push ourselves past, our degree of comfort.
Sure. In 2020, he was at a peaceful protest and the government executed him.
Yeah.
We got it good here in America, and people forget that.
We do have it good here.
You want people to think highly of you, but you also don't want to care in some cases what people think.
Well, that's the truth.
It's a
right?
tricky part.
There goes back. We were talking about peeling back, things about ourselves.
Right.
Well, that's part of me.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on today, guys? And thanks for checking out this episode of the SaltyFresh Perspective podcast. My guest today is the managing partner of the Moore business. He was a former representative to professional athletes, an all-around Orlando legend, and a guy that I get to call my friend. Please give it up for Lowell Moore. All right. Well, sitting
up,
here.
man?
What's up? Episode 3 now, of the podcast. Nice. Episode 3. Good buddy of mine, Lowell Moore from the Moore business. The Moore business, right? Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Man, I'm excited about it. Since we've talked about it, I've been excited about it.
Yeah, me too. Like, I couldn't sleep last night, to tell you the truth. I was excited. Not just because of the Tampa game, but because I was getting to talk to you today.
Nice.
So I kind of wanted to start us off with the first time I heard your name. Is that cool?
Okay.
So the first time I heard Lowell Moore, we know the lady, Nazia, right? She says, I got a guy that can maybe help us. We were working on the backpack donation.
Yep.
And within an hour of hearing your name, you had me introduced in a meeting with the CEO of a local theme park, a guy that I've seen on TV since I was a little kid. That's how I heard your name. That's how we got together. You're an Orlando legend, man. I've come to learn that here.
Wow, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I remember that day vividly. When I got the call, I was actually walking out the park's main facility, and I was on the steps, and I pace when I walk when I'm on the phone. I pace, so I walked back up the steps, and I'm pacing on the deck, talking to Nazia, who put us on the phone together, and you sometimes just click with people. You're talking to them and you just click. And maybe it was the synergy of what we were talking about.
Sure.
It was really neat. It was school and kids and that's in my wheelhouse and it sounded like it was in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And I was excited to move that forward and talk to you. So I'm like, you know what? I'm here. Let's make this happen. And then once we met, it's like, well, shoot, he's even cooler.
I appreciate that.
He's even cooler than what I expected.
We hit it off quick, and then we were
did.
going to football games and having one of the best conversations I've had today was me and you at that football game that we went to. That was awesome.
Yeah, I think that took it to another level.
For sure.
Just being able to, it really, although we were there kind of networking and looking at an opportunity.
Right.
Spending that time talking to you and getting to know you more and vice versa.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That took it to another level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, I was telling Nazia we were going to do this. We were going to sit down and finally do this. And she goes, the one thing we never quite could understand is, what is it that you do, man? You got your hands in so many things, and you probably get this question all the time. So for the people that don't know you, what is it that you do?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I do get that a lot. And my answer to that is, and it's kind of in our name. So Moore business. We are driven to help companies increase their profits. And because of my background and my experience, I've got a big Rolodex. I have a lot of experience in marketing. So we can sit down with companies and dig into what their needs are. And for some it's different for everybody, right? In your case, the company you were working for, it was more community engagement.
Right.
We're able to help in that area.
Yeah.
For some companies, it may be marketing. And then there's a vast array of opportunities in that, whether it's social media, whether it's advertising, whether it's boots on the ground, whatever it is, we can help them in that area. So although we're a marketing firm, we're also a business consulting company, and we can help you from soup to nuts. And then we can sit down with you and look at, all right, well, let's think outside the box. Have you thought about this area? I used to represent athletes for 15 years.
That's right.
So we can look at how could we maximize the sporting industry and open up some unique opportunities in that arena. Yeah. Maybe it's sponsorship for special events. Maybe we can help you in that area.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what a company or individual needs.
Right.
We can bring it to the table.
It seems like, you mentioned your Rolodex, but you have small businesses, you have large corporations, and just such a wide range. I think that's what fascinated me. The more I learned, just like, man, this guy is working a lot of different angles and helping a lot of different people in all different spaces. So I was like, man, this guy's really got his finger on the pulse. And then everybody I've ever met through you, that you've introduced me to or that knows you, some of the best people I've personally ever met. And that's what spoke to me about you as far as your character. More and more, the people that you surround yourself with just seem like some of the best people I've ever been around.
Well, I got goosebumps because as you were saying that, I was thinking about, you start thinking about your life and experiences that you've had, and some of them good and some of them bad, and you come to realize I can limit my bad experiences by surrounding myself with really good people. And that's what I endeavored to do. I don't like drama. And when I give my word, I'm going to move mountains to complete that.
Right.
And if I say something to somebody, I'm going to make sure I deliver on it, or I'm not going to say it.
Right.
So if you surround yourself with people that have that same mindset, well, then those conversations become really neat. You have them, you talk about a plan, you say this is what I'm going to do and this is what you're going to do, and you walk away feeling, okay, I don't have to worry about that. But if you are surrounded by folks that will tell you what you want to hear in a moment, or promise something that they know they cannot deliver, and they're willing to walk away from that relationship, well, then you're going to have problems.
Right. I think that's what was so refreshing for me about meeting you at the time that I was meeting you, is because I'm in this corporate world where it was becoming increasingly clear that those weren't the kind of people that I was around. That wasn't the circle that I had. Not everybody in the corporate world is bad, but at least in some of my experiences, it seemed more that people had their own agendas in mind. And what you said about your word, it's something I've tried to hold myself to my entire life, learned that through my family. When you start meeting people that aren't like that, it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening.
And it's frustrating.
Sure.
Because that same pool of individuals that will say anything, whether they're trying to make you feel good or whether they have an agenda themselves, it is just a frustrating experience. And then when they can't deliver, they're the same folks that will create a reason why it's your fault.
Right.
It's like,
man. The victim,
well, wait
real
a
fast.
minute. I didn't reach in your mouth and pull this out. I mean, you said this. So me holding you accountable is my fault.
Sure.
And I've had I've had those experiences.
Right.
And, I remember some of the folks that I've dealt with over the years, men and women that really were that quality person. They're soft-spoken. They're not real animated. They just, here's what it is, and they will deliver what they're saying, and they'll expect you to do the same.
Right.
Just quality folks, and I can even see some of them. And I remember saying to myself, as a younger person, wow, man, I would love to be able to be that person that when they see me coming, or if I pick up the phone and call them, they know that I'm not bringing BS.
Right.
Yeah. They will answer my call because it's like, listen, whether we do a deal or not, we need to listen.
Right.
Let's look at it.
Yeah.
Because he's not the guy that's going to bring us crap. He's probably vetted it already.
Yeah.
And it's something that could potentially be positive for our business, because I also take pride in knowing who I'm dealing with. Dig into their business. Know the individual. And if you know the individual and you take the time to dig into their business and what their needs are and what the demographic they're going after, then it saves a lot of time.
Sure. And headache, I'm sure, too.
And headache, because you're not bringing things to them and they're saying, why are you, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
This is, you're wasting my time.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And that happens a lot, again, because of the agenda. People have different agendas.
Right.
And you can figure those out pretty quick.
Yeah.
you
Some people get pretty good at hiding them, I think.
Yeah, I
that's a
agree.
skill that some people probably learn. But it seems that listening to you now, that the better strategy would be to be more open, to be more transparent in whatever relationship you're in life. That seems to be the best, whether it's business or personal, whatever the case may be. It seems like to be more open and a trustworthy guy and one that's looking out for everybody that's involved seems like the better play if you're going to build. We're building humans. We both have kids. If you're building humans, that seems like the better strategy to go with.
Well, it is. It comes down to, I'm not smart enough to remember everything, right?
Yeah.
So that approach has worked well for me. And what I mean by that is, if I'm lining the streets with bullshit, I've got to remember all the bullshit that I'm lining the streets with.
Interesting.
And that's way too much to fill my brain with.
Yeah.
So truth and transparency are the way to go.
Yeah.
And it's served me well.
Yeah.
If I can't do it, I say I can't do it.
Right.
If I say I can do it, then I'm gonna move mountains to make it happen.
Right.
And then don't shoot any BS in anybody.
Yeah. That'll come back at you in the long run.
Period. End of story.
Right.
So I don't want to remember. I can't remember. I'm too old.
Yeah. You got the way you started that was you don't know everything, right? But on the flip side, there's other people that think that they know everything and they want you to think that they know everything. And it seems like it's more, I don't know if it's humility or humbling or just stripping away your ego. But how do you get to the point of a man like yourself where your ego's not in the way when you're in some of those positions?
Because I've been there, done that.
Okay. Okay.
I've it's funny. My wife. I tell my wife, we have chapters, right? If we're a book, we have chapters in our book.
Right.
And my earlier chapters, there was a degree of arrogance, of thinking you know everything.
Right.
Because you may have real talents, right? And you can see those talents as they manifest themselves around situations or accomplishing things or whatever your accomplishments are, there's a degree of ego and arrogance that comes with that.
Right.
Well, that can also be dangerous if you don't temper that ego and arrogance with humility.
Sure.
And so I've traveled that road where I thought I knew everything. Well, you find out quickly that you don't know everything, and that can humble you, and humble you in not a good way, in a crushing way. And when you recover from that period, you say, all right, I'm going to learn to stay in my lane. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm passionate about. And I know what I'm willing to push the envelope with. And that's the moving mountains part, right? And I think it's good that we evolve that way. We have to test ourselves and push ourselves past, our degree of comfort.
Sure.
But you have to be committed to that. If you're going to push yourself, you've got to really push yourself, and you're going to have to deal with everything that comes along and be willing to accept the consequences of that as well.
Right.
Whether good or bad.
Right.
So I've been that arrogant know-it-all, and that does not work. We don't know it all. And then
Nobody does. I tell my kids that. No one knows it all.
no one does. So how can I act like I know it all,
Right.
and then be a father, which I am,
Right.
and teach my kids properly? I'm going to raise a bunch of know-it-all, arrogant, little egotistical. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And you got to live it, because as a parent, you are the living example,
Yeah.
not just what's coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
They're watching your actions. So my actions with human beings is really important to me. And I think now that there's a strength in saying, I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'll find out.
Right.
I don't think I can do that, but I may know someone that can.
I can. Yeah.
I think there's a strength in that. And because I do have a pretty neat contact base,
Yeah.
I am able to now say, I may not be able to do that, but I'm confident that I have, that I know someone that can. And if you let me check with them, maybe I can connect you guys and see how that works out.
Yeah.
So the networking aspect of things is a positive benefit to not knowing everything.
Sure. It's beneficial to be the way you are in the space that you're in because you're passionate about it, and obviously it plays to all your strengths. You mentioned something to me right there that made me think. You talked about going through adversity and coming out of it better at the other end. It seems like if you look at people historically, that makes some of the best people. Whether you're looking at athletes that needed to escape whatever situation they were in, they come to some of the best, they become one of the best athletes. But on the flip side, everybody knows maybe a spoiled rich kid that is the opposite of that everything was easy for them, and then when they get to the real world, maybe they're those egotistical people that we don't want our children to be. So you got to simulate a little bit or make sure that people go through more, like you said, put yourself in those situations where you can be humbled and learn from them.
Well, yeah, and we know some of those folks,
Sure.
right? We've grown up with some of those folks.
Right.
We probably worked with some of those folks.
Right.
Entitled, hasn't really met adversity yet. Wouldn't know how to deal with it if it came, and that's tough. I'm from New York. Spent 15 years in California. A lot of that in Beverly Hills. So
You've seen all kinds
I've
of
seen
people out there, I bet.
I've seen a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to stand back and watch folks and see, as a matter of fact, as we're saying that, I'm seeing a story in my head, and I won't speak his name,
Sure.
but he's the son of an extremely well-known actor.
Okay.
Hot mess. And he was a friend, someone I hung out with out there. Hot mess. Great lesson for me, because it was a situation where I had to look at myself and say, okay, well, he's a hot mess and here you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, and I've been in a few of those situations where, okay, hot mess, yet here you are.
Yeah.
So at what point do we start to look at ourselves with really honest, brutally honest eyes?
Yeah.
Because we're not always honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And if we're not honest with ourselves, and how honest and transparent can we be with other people?
Bingo.
And my last bout with that process, two. One saved my life, and one, I think, really put me on the journey of where I am now. Okay? One was with an old friend. I got sick. Ended up in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And it wasn't good. It scared the heck out of my mother. And my mother and I are really close, and it scared the bejesus out of her. So much so that she was trying to protect me from it. Like I to this day, I don't really know the whole story of what I went through and how close I was to whatever to this day. And I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But it scared the bejesus out of my mother. When I finally came out of the hospital, I was on medication. I used to spend a lot of time in Windermere on Lake Butler acting a plain fool.
Oh, okay.
Drinking too much, didn't know how I got the boat back to the house. I mean, just craziness.
Yeah.
Have to wake up the next day and swim out and get the daggone boat to bring it back to the dock. I mean, thank God, thank God it wasn't worse.
Right.
So now I'm on medication. I can't drink, and I'm out on Lake Butler, Bird Island, and now I'm watching sober.
An interesting, different vantage point.
Different dynamic.
Wow.
Different dynamic. And I remember the first thing that went, wow, I'm getting emotional about it. I remember the first thing that popped into my head was my mother would slap the shit out of me.
Ooh.
My mother would be extremely disappointed if that was my behavior.
Sure.
Just over drinking.
Yeah.
Just stupid.
It's funny that that's what popped into your head. You wouldn't want to disappoint the one that gave you the shot.
My mother has saved my life that way on a few occasions, and maybe I will talk about it because I've never talked about it publicly.
This seems to get people to open up. Yeah, I hope that's okay with you. I hope that's okay with you.
It is. So this particular time, I never went back to drinking. Now I'll have wine, and if I can't remember the last time I had a beer, but I'll have a glass of wine. We're in the wine business.
Your sangria is good, by the way.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
And it really is.
It really is, and a good concept.
So I stopped drinking. I know that saved my life. There was a lot of things that surrounded that situation later on down the road. It really saved my life. Getting away from that saved my life. The next one was when I met my wife, who is now my wife. And my wife made me really look at myself through an honest lens. I mean, a brutally honest lens. That was step one, because that was one of those situations again, like, oh my God, these folks are a hot mess. Yet here you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So my wife, now wife, I describe my wife as pure love. She's just a good-hearted, good woman. And my relationship with her made me really look at myself, honestly. Now, there was a lot going on during that period. I won't go into all of that, but and that process of starting to really peel back the layer of, who are you, where you going,
what are you doing with your life?
what do you want to be,
Yeah.
how do you want people to see you and think about you, and that process was awesome. Getting back into church and taking my spiritual journey to another level was just huge.
Why do you think it is? And you and I share a similar story in that it really took me looking at myself in the mirror and figuring out why I'm a certain way, maybe why I think a certain way about certain things, till I really started to realize who I was and what it was that I wanted. Why do you think it is that people have a hard time looking in the mirror or pointing the finger at themselves? Why is it usually the opposite, do you think?
I think it's a simple answer, and I might be wrong, but this is my opinion.
It's your perspective. That's why we're here, man.
I think we don't really want to address. We know who we are.
Right.
I mean, let's get real.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We know who we are.
Right.
So there's no escaping it. Just because you don't want to have the discussion with yourself about it, or you don't want to address certain things, because when you start unpeeling, you can't lie to you. You can, but you're lying to you.
Yeah. For how long can you, like you said about keeping up with lies, for
Right.
people, how long can you keep up with the lies to yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really are willing to sit down with yourself, across from yourself, like imagine that visual,
Sure.
right?
Like what we're doing here.
Like what we're doing.
Right.
If it was Steve on the other side,
Yeah.
or Lowell on the other side,
Yeah.
and you're having a conversation, and Steve and Lowell know Steve and Lowell,
Yeah. Interesting.
and you're sitting there saying, all right, go ahead, bullshit me.
Yeah, try to bullshit.
You know
me.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, go ahead,
yeah.
throw it at
Yeah.
me. Like, I see you out there, but go ahead.
Interesting way to look at it. I like that.
So when you're willing to have that kind of conversation with yourself, and you can walk away saying, that was hard, but okay.
Yeah.
I think you can begin the next chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
now you're writing the chapter. You're aware
right.
that you're writing the chapter.
Right.
So what are we writing?
Yeah.
What are we going to write?
Yeah.
And now let's add some kids to that scenario.
Sure.
Because we both have young kids.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we've had that conversation with each other, with ourselves, and a new life comes into the world.
Yeah.
What are you going to present to this new life?
Right.
how are you going to live your life for this new life?
Right.
You know, and this wife and mother that you have, and it's giving you this gift.
Yeah.
And so I think it's people that just aren't ready or willing to address themselves with that degree of honesty.
It's a hard way to look at yourself. And I think that's really what forced me to do it was my children. Here are these fresh minds. And like you said, we all know people that maybe didn't get everything they needed when they were in those developmental stages. And it seems like it's harder for them in the long run to get to that point of where you and I are talking about, where you're comfortable with yourself.
Yep.
I think that's really what opened me up to look at myself more, was having children. Something my grandfather told me, my father told me, that once you have kids, it changes you. When you're a kid and you hear that, it's like, okay, what do you know? But as you get there and experience it yourself, it's crystal clear that they change you in the best ways.
The best way.
They should change you.
Hopefully in the best way.
Hopefully in the best way.
Hopefully in the best way.
Right.
I agree. You know, because you know, going back to the Hollywood situation I told you about.
Yeah.
You know, people think that, you know, when you got money and you're experiencing some degree of success, whatever that degree of success is for folks,
Sure.
whatever money is, whatever degree of success that is for individual, all of that's relative.
Yeah.
You know, that there's that challenges aren't involved with that. Well, that's BS. You know, the more you're doing and the more you have access to, the more access you have to problems as well.
Yeah.
You know, you can put yourself in situations and scenarios that may not be good for you.
Right.
You may run down roads that you're testing that may not be good for you.
Right.
You may start drinking more. You may get introduced to drugs, whatever the case may be.
Happens to a ton of people that way.
Womanizing, you know, it could be, you know, more money, more women.
Sure.
I mean, whatever that vice is.
Yeah. Why do you think people need vices? It's an interesting thing that I think about sometimes. Is it because they're not honest with themselves? Is that's what is missing to truly understand yourself, when you understand why you need some of those vices?
See, I don't know. Now, I have a different perspective there too. I don't know that it's a need. I think it's experience. You know, if your life has been a certain way and you haven't been exposed to certain experiences, I think when people are exposed to different things, you know, maybe they're just taking a bite of the apple, you know.
Sure. I hear you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, oh, I have a chance to try this. I'm going to try it.
Maybe
I've
never
never
had that
this opportunity before.
Bingo.
You know, it's like the person that gets, you know, okay, someone wins the lotto,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
It's the first thing they're going to buy.
Something they probably don't need, you know.
They're either going to buy a big house.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on where their head is at.
Sure. Cars,
okay?
boats.
I've never had a big house. I'm buying me a house.
Yeah.
I've never had a Ferrari. I'm buying me a Ferrari.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I've never had a nice boat. I'm buying a boat. Whatever it is, the exposure they now have access to, they want to go try that. They want to dip their foot into that pool.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. I don't think it's a need for vices. I think it's like, wow, I've heard about, you know, man, I could never be with a beautiful woman, you know. I want one of those.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's an interesting perspective, because it touches on another one that I think relates. And I'm not married to any of my perspectives. I think that's something good in your life. I think you should be open to hear things out.
Absolutely.
But what you said about, and that just made me lose my train of thought trying to get into that one with you, because we got time. That's long for you know. But the idea of you have to experience things to know if you like them one way or the other. You can
agree.
relate that to food. You know, you
agree.
mentioning that makes sense to why people get into certain things that they're into, because for whatever reason they feel like they need to experience those at that given moment. And I think you're right. I think that's an interesting perspective and something I wanted to touch with you on.
And I think that human being is not unique. I think most human beings would want to try different things.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Or feel a desire to try things that they haven't.
Yeah.
Good for them or bad for them.
Yeah.
I think it's the person that doesn't feel the need to try something. That's a pretty strong human being.
Sure.
I've got a buddy of mine I've known, good God, 40 years?
Wow.
40 at least.
Wow.
40 plus. He has never touched alcohol or a drug
Really?
to this day.
Wow. Wow.
To this day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, dude. Wow.
Wow. That's rare. That's rare.
See, to me, he's the unique guy.
Sure.
He's unique. The strength that he has to not even have the desire. I don't even have a desire to try. I don't have a curiosity to try it.
Do you think in an individual like that, well, maybe not necessarily with alcohol and drugs, but do you think there's ever, with that mindset, a sense of regret that might come later?
None.
Because you never tried
None.
things. Really?
Well, at least
For him.
in our conversations,
Sure.
he's never
Yeah.
shown me a degree of regret for
Right.
any of it.
Right.
It's impressive to me.
Wow.
I think I'm like, wow, dude, wow,
Wow. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
But you think of, so let's look at the other side of it, right? Let's look at the guy or the woman that may never be involved with a model like human being, guy or girl.
Right.
Well, would they regret that? You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't think there are regrets with something that you never have access to. I think regrets may come if you have access to it and you've never gone down that road.
Yeah.
Depending on what that is.
Sure.
Maybe there might be some regrets.
Yeah.
That's just
It seems to
my
be something,
mindset.
if you could not have regrets, if you want to build an optimal life, me personally, I don't want to be 90 years old. Hopefully I make it that long and have regrets on things.
Yeah.
I think that's led me to a lot of better decisions in thinking that way.
Yeah.
Whether it's trying new things or leaving companies or trying new stuff, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one regret.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. I have one regret.
Okay.
As a kid, I was a skier. I loved to ski.
Snow ski or water
Snow
ski?
ski.
Snow ski. Okay.
And I was good at it.
Really?
And we traveled a lot to ski.
Wow.
All over.
Ah.
We're in Switzerland, and we're skiing, and the Olympic ski team was there. And they're doing the slalom, and I was able to watch, which was awesome. And I started skiing on the other side of the fence because they had it fenced off. And I'm skiing with these world-class skiers, and I'm going down with them. And someone saw me doing that. And I did it for, we were there over a week. So I'm doing that every chance I get to go do that. Finally, someone followed me into the lodge to my mom and talked to her about, ma'am, do you know your
It's pretty good at this.
your kid is pretty good at this, like really good at this.
Yeah.
Would you consider letting him train?
Huh.
And my mother was like, heck no.
Oh no.
This boy's going to college, you know.
Oh, okay. She had other ideas for you.
And I get it.
Sure.
You know,
How old were you?
I'm
roughly?
in my teens.
Teens, okay,
you know.
teenager.
Yeah. So I get it. There were no African American to this date, and that's my regret.
Really?
So my regret is not only could I have been the first African American skier, hopefully I would have made the Olympics you know, over time if I'm trained.
Yeah.
They felt that I had a skill.
Yeah.
I regret that. Not being the first. You know, you look at some of the firsts in different sports and different industries. I mean, good God. You know,
the chance to be the first at something. Rare.
That's a regret.
I get it.
That's a regret.
Wow. But on the flip side, would have changed your whole outcome of your life. Maybe you would have never met the wife that taught you so many things.
No doubt about it.
Interesting.
No doubt about it.
Interesting. Now that we're
and God's plan is perfect in my life. God's plan is perfect. Everything I've gone through, and I've gone through some really stupid things. But I've had a charmed life. I mean, my life has been amazing. I have an amazing mother. I have an amazing family. You know, as a young kid, my mother exposed us to a ton of stuff. You know, my journey in business has been pretty amazing. My journey, you know, working with sports and athletes in Beverly Hills 15 years was, I'd have paid them to do that. I mean, seriously. I get paid for this?
This is what you want me to do? Wow.
You know, like, really?
Wow.
My life is amazing now. You know, the things that I'm doing now, the opportunities that are in front of me, and, you know, the circle of friends and contacts that I have. My life is charmed. So God's plan is perfect. And every tough and negative thing that I've gone through opened up an avenue for me to talk to anybody. I feel that I can sit down and have a conversation with anybody.
That is a similar thing that I think about, because I think that's rare. And not because, you know, I want to be a rare person, but I think that people are losing too much of this. We're losing too much in society, the ability to sit down and have a conversation with somebody. It's interesting that we share that.
I agree. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah, we do.
It's like when did we lose the ability and the desire to communicate with another human being?
Right.
Like, are we going to agree on everything? Hell no.
No.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
Because if you are agreeing on everything, somebody's lying.
Somebody's lying. That's a good point.
Somebody's
one of those people telling you what you want to hear.
Somebody ain't telling the truth.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting.
You know, and then we look at how the world is shaping up. Let's just forget our own country. Let's just put it on a global. On a global scale.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it is the ability to communicate with another human being. That's the gift God gave us. To reason and rational and compromise and be sympathetic and compassionate. You know, that's the gift that we were given.
Right. So many people are the opposite of that, though. You know, and it seems more and more and maybe because technology is more prevalent, you see more about people, but it seems that it's growing the opposite of that. And you mentioned other countries, right here in our very home America. It's something just a couple of days ago at the Capitol. I never would have thought I would see something like that in my life.
Yeah.
We used to go there on field trips. I can't remember the grade. I've walked in those steps, and now I know that people were killed there over different reasons.
Yeah.
But then again, like you talk about other countries, like a country like Saudi Arabia, the government beheaded 800 people in Saudi Arabia. One of them was you talking about Olympics.
Yeah.
One of them was an Olympic athlete. In 2020, he was at a peaceful protest, and the government executed him.
Yeah.
We got it good here in America, and people forget that.
We do have it good here, and there again is the, the ability that we've been given, yet we're not using it.
Right.
To behead somebody, I mean, come on, and then here in our country, 5 people had to lose their lives over what?
Over what?
Like, what was so important that these 5 innocent folks that did not expect to go to the Capitol and lose their life?
Wow.
I mean, we can't, and these things aren't enough to shock us into speaking. I mean, that's the craziness.
Right.
It's like people think that something's going to shock us into talking. Well, no, we're violent beings.
Yeah. No, by nature.
So stop
Yeah.
thinking that violence is going to shock us into changing.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. I think it'll play more into that nature of human beings to be violent. If you watch violence all day, you're watching one specific news source versus the other, your narrative and how you think it's changing people based off of what it is that they're intaking.
See, and what happens is, when people take steps, when they take leaps down one way or the other, right? The person that take a salesperson for an example, right? You take a salesperson that goes out and experiences a sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
That success fuels them to go out and do it again.
Do it again.
And go out and do it again.
Sure.
And that keeps happening because they're feeling the success and the immediate gratification of that.
Right.
Well, let's flip that.
Yeah.
Guy or girl goes out and knocks the shit out of somebody. And they see, wow, I'm capable. I did that. And that emboldens them to maybe take the next step. And the next step. And maybe goes too far with it.
Sure.
It's the same thing that triggers our brain that says, I'm good at this.
Yeah. I think it plays to the old saying that your mind is your most powerful weapon.
No doubt.
To not be that person that keeps making bad choice after bad choice. They got this lady, and I know people don't like to get into politics, but I kind of like getting into it because I think you can learn a little bit from people's views, right?
No question.
You got this lady in Texas. She takes a private jet up to the Capitol. She's a wealthy individual, takes a private jet up there to march, and now she's facing some charges, right? You got individuals like that. You got individuals on the other side that think that Trump's the Antichrist. So there's this wide range of people.
Right.
And I think the answer is the mind. That's got to be, at least in my head, the better you are there.
The answer is your universe, which is your mind. The answer is your universe.
Your environment.
Let's take our environment and look at it. How is your environment? Is everything in your universe working really well? Is it a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine?
Right.
Is the family good?
Yeah.
Are the kids good?
Yeah.
Is the marriage good?
Yeah.
Are you communicating with your friends all the time? Are those relationships good? How's work? How's your customers? What's your universe look like?
Right.
Because if your universe is going really well, what's your problem?
Right.
But if your universe is chaos, then who you blaming?
Yeah. I think it's right back to being able to look at yourself in the mirror, being able to identify your own universe in what's good and what's bad, and looking to get better at it.
And that's choice.
Yeah.
And that's choice. That's
Right.
what I was talking about for myself earlier.
Right.
That's choice. You choose what your universe is going to look like. You choose how you're going to treat people. You choose how you want people to think of you, because how you treat them
Right.
will determine how they think, what they think of you.
Sure.
So your universe and how you function in that universe will determine
how it is. How it is.
It's not complicated.
Yeah. But it's hard for people. It's exemplified more.
Because we're always doing this.
Pointing the finger.
It's their fault. Oh, this one.
More people should be pointing
even
back
when
that way.
even when folks don't do what they say. I can point a finger. Or I can say, you know what? Shame on me. They may not have fit in my universe in the first place.
A man with the Rolodex, as you mentioned, that you have, the contacts, the relationships, is it important to you to make sure it's the right people? It's got to be important to you, or they wouldn't be around you.
Well, you will see very quickly, if that person or persons or group aren't following through on what they say, then you realize, okay, well, that person's word isn't that important to them. I can't really trust that.
If it's not important to themselves.
If it's not important to them,
Wow.
I have to recognize that. Well, there's no way I can introduce that person to Steve.
Right.
And co-sign it. Because whatever happens, I can't blame them. I introduced them into, Steve's looking at me.
Yeah.
Steve's not looking at them.
Yeah.
I co-signed it. Steve trusts my word. So I just put myself in a trick. My universe is a little off tilt now. So you have to know, you have to decide what your universe is going to look like. And when people start, I say in my circle, if someone shows you your ass, pay attention.
I haven't heard you say that.
If pay attention. If they're showing you their butt, why would you continue to let them infiltrate your universe?
Because you've already seen it.
You've seen it. It doesn't mean you have to treat them poorly.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just saying, listen, relative to my family, relative to if I have a need or someone, your service could benefit, I can't trust that because at some point he's going to show his ass.
Right.
And if you know that, can't do it.
Look at it.
Pay attention.
Pay attention.
I hear what you say, but I see what you do.
When you mentioned that about children, I think they see what you do more than listen to what you say in a lot of cases.
Facts. My 6-year-old watches me like a hawk. I mean, it scares me. I'm like, God, I need to be a priest.
Watching me all the time.
I mean, like, wow,
Yeah.
and you've got a boy and a girl.
Yeah, 8 and 6 now.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes me think about these things, is because another old saying, you're the product of your environment.
That's right.
I want the right environment. Me and my wife want the right environment for our children and for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's a learning process as we go. But the environment of the world today, and I know people have said this probably for forever, but it truly does feel different this time, the world today, than maybe it's been. And there's been tons of, looking at history, there's been tons of stuff where you could argue that point. Yeah. It just seems like the way the world is now, it might be a little tougher to navigate that as far as making sure they're in the right product. But like you said, you're in control of your own environment.
You are. I mean, that's the one thing we get to do is control our environment.
Right.
So the way you open this, I'm so appreciative of how you view me. It means a ton to me. Like, I don't hear that and just ignore it. That means a ton to me because I'm working on that.
Right.
That's, like going in the gym. You're going in the gym. And you want to see a bicep or two.
You got to put in the work.
You got to put in the work. And I'm putting in the work into this chapter of my life.
I don't think that work should end. I just had a good conversation. My grandfather turned 90. I don't know if I told you.
Yeah.
He said he mentioned things like that that he continues to work on at 90 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think that work should end.
No, it shouldn't end. And I think as we mature, I'm going to use the word mature, not get older. As we mature, it definitely becomes more important it's more important to me. I'm going to speak for myself. And I think you feel the same way. I know you do because we've talked about it. As we mature, these things do become important to us because we are looking at how it affects not only our lives and our universe, but how does it affect the universe of our children?
Right.
How will it affect our grandchildren if we're blessed to have those?
Right.
What will the legacy be, that we leave our kids?
Yeah.
I don't want to leave my dad was a drunk. My dad, screwed people every chance he got.
It's the first time you ever mentioned your father to me.
So I know my dad. My perspective of my dad changed. My dad wasn't in my life. Him and my mom separated very, very early. I tried to have a relationship with him.
You tried to have a relationship?
I tried.
Really?
With my oldest daughter, I flew him down to Orlando so he can meet him. It just didn't work out. When he passed away, I had zero intention of going to the funeral. My wife, my current wife, had other plans.
Wow.
She forced me to go. We drove up, which was, I'm so glad we did that.
New York?
We drove to New York. Yeah. New Jersey, actually.
New Jersey.
The entire trip, we read Bible verses. We had these books that we were reading, and it was good because it kept my mind off of negativity and kept me in a positive spirit. So when I got there was a lot of dynamics going on. I pull up to the viewing, and I'm a junior. He's senior.
Okay.
So I'm junior.
Yeah.
We look like twins. So walking into the venue, people's heads are turning and they're freaking out.
Thinking you're him.
They're
oh my gosh.
Now the casket's up front. And they're freaking out. They're like, whoa. So there's that, that whisper that happens in a venue. So that's happening. My brothers were there. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. My one sister, Nisi, lives here in Florida, has been my second sister, who I had never laid eyes on. We met for the first time
at your father's funeral.
At my father's funeral.
Wow.
And that was awesome and emotional.
Sure.
And then I sat and I listened to all the people. My dad owned a barbershop for 60 years.
Really?
He was the neighborhood barber.
Okay.
And I'm listening to these grown men who were kids, and they're talking about the impact that my father had on their life. How he had pulled them out of situations, how he had saved them from gangs, how he had gotten them off drugs, how he had, put them on a course where they had graduated college and went on to have careers. And I'm listening to all of these. Everyone wanted to speak. And I'm like,
where was mine?
I thought I would have that feeling. I didn't.
Huh.
I had a pride. I actually felt a pride.
Wow.
Like, which was really weird.
Huh.
Really, like it got. I no anger whatsoever. I had no anger whatsoever. I found out that my dad wasn't a jackass.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for me.
Right.
But he wasn't a bad human being.
Yeah.
It'd be different if it didn't work out for me and he went on to be a jackass.
Interesting. So instead of poor me, why didn't my dad do this for me? It was the opposite. It was like, man, he was a good guy for a lot of people.
I felt great pride.
Wow.
And joy, and so glad. To this day, I tell my wife, thank you so much for making me go.
Yeah.
Because had I not gone and heard that, then my perspective.
You still think he's a jackass?
You're a jackass to me. He just wasn't, and then being a dad, things happen.
Sure.
Stuff happens. So I don't know the whole story.
Right.
My mother's a good woman. My mother never condemned this man. She used to let him come out to. We lived in Nassau County. She would let him and his wife and my brothers come out. We had a nice home. We had a pool, and so they would come out to the island and spend time with us with his new wife.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing. I mean, as an adult looking back at that,
sure.
it's like, wow.
Putting yourself in those shoes, that would be,
like wow.
Wow.
So it was awesome getting to know my sister, because now she had her big brother. She'd call me at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, which I let her do. Like I never mind. And she talked to me for an hour. I'm like, it's honey. It's she passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She drowned at another funeral, family member. She went to the funeral, and she drowned.
At the funeral?
She had a seizure in the pool playing Marco Polo.
Oh.
And she drowned. And I'm grateful that I got to know her and spend that time with her. And that was a tough funeral to go to.
Yeah.
She went to the funeral representing the family because I couldn't go. None of the brothers could go. So she went on our behalf.
Ouch. Ouch.
So how important was that? God, right? I get to find out that my dad's not an idiot.
No.
I get to meet my sister and spend it wasn't a year from the time that I met her to the time she passed. May have been a year. But thank God for that year.
Yeah.
I've got great memories. My daughter met her auntie.
Oh, awesome.
My daughter to this day prays for her auntie.
Wow.
So you can look at these disasters and woe is me. Or you can look at the good that came out of it.
Right.
And going back to my life is pretty, well versed.
Right.
I could talk to anybody.
Yeah.
About anything.
Yeah.
My stupidity through drugs and alcohol, my business opportunities,
Yeah.
the sports things, missed opportunities.
Sure.
You know,
That time in sports had to be pretty cool. We've talked about it a little bit, you know. That what was that like, man? That had to be pretty awesome.
You know, it was crazy awesome. You know, I'm so grateful for it because I've lived through some historic situations. You know, the one that stands out for me was you know, I remember the first time meeting Michael Jordan. You know, and you feel like you're meeting Black Jesus.
Black Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, you know, it was like, we were doing a commercial with Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones played for the Lakers. He went to Temple.
Okay.
He went to Temple
with like Magic in them or that team or help me out.
Magic.
Okay.
Magic was played with him.
Okay.
But we were doing a commercial in LA at the Clipper Arena. And I walk in and me and Eddie are walking over and there's Black Jesus on the court, and he gives Eddie a hug, and Eddie goes to introduce me, and he says, "I know who he is. I know this is your guy," because we would see each other at the games and stuff. I wasn't, you know, I was in the business, so I wasn't that guy, the autograph guy, or you know,
like his normal fans or people that normally come up to him.
Stay in your lane.
Exactly.
You know, I stayed in my lane. So he knew who I was, and he came over and he gave me hugs. But that was the first time I had, you know, I'm talking to Black Jesus.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, I'm like, wow, I'm freaking getting paid to do this. This is crazy. Like, I'd have paid for a fantasy. Like, this is a fantasy thing you would pay for.
To meet Michael Jordan. Oh, yes. Yes.
And then, you know, a few years after that, he did Space Jam.
I love that movie as a kid.
Well, you know, they built this gymnasium on the lot. And everybody came and played. And I used to bring some of my clients out there to play. And I got a chance to play on the court with Michael Jordan.
Get out of here.
And Alonzo Mourning, and I mean, just a list of guys. And I'm like, what's going on? I get paid for this. So it was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And then there were some really bad experiences. You know, some guys were a pain in the ass.
I bet.
Bad. Like, I'm getting calls 3 o'clock in the morning talking about, dude, my wife found underwear, and I told him it was you and your girlfriend.
Oh, trying to get you to cover for him?
Like, bro.
Oh, man.
First of all, why are you calling me 3 o'clock in the morning?
Jeez.
I'm not that guy for you. You know, you got other guys for that. So, you know, it was...
Wow. Yeah. Probably learned a lot about people that way. Probably money, too. A lot of athletes, when they get into that world where they got a lot of money, maybe they didn't have it before, you probably learned a lot about people in that time.
It was a great period for me to be able to sit back and watch mannerisms of folks and to learn that there are correlations with people. If you just watch them, they will tell you about themselves.
Right.
I had a CEO put that bug in my ear. You know, he would tell me about how his meetings would go, and what he would pay attention to, and it would let him know what they were like.
Right.
And you know, you're like, come on,
no,
you know, how can you? But it's so true.
No.
And it helped me a lot, because when you're sitting down with a CEO and you're talking about, you know, multi-million-dollar endorsement deals, you need to pay attention to what's going on in the room. You know, because you're sitting with the CEO, you're sitting with their senior VP. You know, you're sitting with their head of marketing, their marketing directors, their PR. You know, there's a lot of people in the room when you're having those meetings. So you've got to kind of assess it all. Most important is the guy writing the check. So you're paying attention to, you know, how's he feeling? How's he looking at your guy? You know, and it's so true. When you can assess a room and people, you know, within a 5-minute or less period, that's huge.
I've said this before, that whatever it is you're after, it seems like the better your relationships with people or your understanding of people, it seems to make things easier for yourself along the way. That sounds a little selfish because you're also learning about other individuals, but
well, it's important, right? Because if you're not willing to pay attention, if it's all about you, right? You go into a scenario and you're just focused on what you want and your agenda.
Yeah.
Well, then you got a problem.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not going into it paying attention to the person that you're dealing with and what their needs are and what they're saying to you, because you're scripted, you know, your agenda is burnt into your head. This is what I'm going in for. This is what I want. You know, and you're going in like that.
Yeah.
Well, you may miss a bigger opportunity.
Sure. Because you're tunnel vision.
Or you may turn off the people that you're dealing with
by not listening to them.
So that was a really awesome period for me. It was a great training ground. Plus, I was old enough to accept every bit of knowledge I could soak out of it, because I'm dealing with. I mean, all I'm dealing with are multimillionaires and billionaires.
High level.
I mean,
people.
that was my world.
Yeah.
Multimillionaires and billionaires. Well, if you don't shut up and listen in that environment, then you're a dumbass.
Yeah, knowing your lane, like you said.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
And pick up as much as you can that you can take with you.
Yeah.
And those mannerisms, watching people's mannerisms and how they treat people.
Yeah.
How they're dealing with people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I felt very fortunate in my life that, you know, my family's, my mom and dad met when they were like 14, man. They've been together ever since.
That's awesome.
But my entire family's in the Central Florida area. I've told you this before. But the way they treated people throughout my whole life, it didn't matter where they came from, what they looked like, who their parents were, how much money they had. They treated people like people. And people that didn't treat people like that, they weren't around me.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel really fortunate to get those experiences as well. But yours is a level that I always wanted to ask you what that time frame was like in your life. We've talked about it a little bit here and there, but shaped a lot of your perspectives that you have now, probably.
It did. It really did. You know, in watching, you know, two really good, very different men. Dr. Jerry Buss, God rest his soul, was a really nice guy, interesting guy. But watching him and how he operated was amazing. And Jerry West, who I have great admiration for. He was that silent guy that you know, when he walked into the room, you know, people knew he was there.
Right. Without saying a word.
Yeah, he wasn't he's not a rah-rah guy.
Right.
You know, he's and he was very helpful to me in my business, and I just have great respect and admiration for him. You know, and there's been a number of folks. You know, there's I call him Pop, gentleman by the name of Mickey Stevenson, William Mickey Stevenson. Mickey was Motown's first A&R person. He's responsible for creating the band, putting the band together that created the Motown sound.
Wow.
And he's written a lot of songs, and he found a lot of artists.
Yeah.
He introduced me to Smokey Robinson, who became a golfing buddy of mine. All of us, and Mickey's, like I said, I call him Pop. He's like a dad to me.
Wow.
He wrote a book recently, and in his forward, he mentions me.
Get out of here!
I swear,
wow.
he mentions me in his book.
Wow.
Which was like what?
Huh.
So yeah, there are some experiences in my life that really helped me, that are extremely humbling. When I talk about them, because it's like, wow, dude, you're talking about Michael Jordan, and, Mickey Stevenson, who became the president of Motown during a period, and is still, he's a Hall of Fame. I mean, he's a rock and roll Hall of Famer. This guy is the real deal.
Yeah.
So it's humbling when you talk to someone about it, and you hear it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow,
yeah.
this is crazy.
Wow. What brought you from there, because that was 25, 26 years you were in that sort of industry, that sort of space. But what brought you from there back to Florida and ultimately what you're doing now?
My daughter.
Your daughter?
My oldest daughter.
Okay.
It was time for Daddy to come home. She was, she was 18 at the time.
Okay.
And Daddy hadn't been
I'll slide
around.
this a little closer, man. You're
sorry.
good. You're good.
I'm sorry.
How you doing on time? You all right?
I'm good. I may need to check something.
No worries.
It was time for Dad to come home, and the players were getting younger. There was a shift. I could see a shift happening, and it was time to come home.
To come home.
Yeah.
And she was living here, Florida?
She was here.
Okay.
With her mother.
Okay.
So it was time.
Do you
come
feel
home.
Florida? I mean, do you ever call Florida your home? I mean,
I
because
feel Florida's my home now.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
In the beginning?
Yeah, well,
Really?
a long time ago though. I mean,
Huh.
we came down here in 84, 85.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Florida's different than it was
Sure,
then.
Sure.
It is. I call it my home now.
Mm.
It's all my daughter knows.
Mm.
She loves it.
Mm.
My family is here. Thank God. My mother's here. My
Yeah.
sister's here. My niece is here. Jesse's, my wife's family's here. So it is home.
Yeah. I said it in the beginning, but you are like an Orlando legend, man, and you know so many people, and so many people know you. And you were telling me the other day about, you starting clubs downtown and stuff. I mean, it just seems like you're pretty deep rooted here. Well, I was born here, that. It seems like you're deep rooted here. I think that's why, I enjoy talking to you and learning your perspectives, because I think we share that common love for Florida now.
Yeah, we came down from New York during a period that, there was a growth spurt going with Orlando. I like to say it began to grow up. Orlando's always been known as a service town. It's Mickey's. This is Mickey's world.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real.
Uh-huh.
This is Mickey's world.
Yeah.
But downtown started to grow up when Church Street Station came in. We did a lot on Church Street.
Yeah.
Then we opened the Beecham as a teen club first.
Teens only, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we've done a lot downtown. Then JJ Whispers.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff in JJ's and Park Avenue. We were involved in probably every club.
Wow.
In Central Florida.
Wow.
Even going out to Lakeland and up as far as Jacksonville. I mean, we were doing a lot of promotions in clubs. Star Search. We did Star Search auditions. Lip Sync. There was a show called Lip Sync where we did those auditions, and we launched Michael Jackson's Candy Bar here in Central Florida.
Really?
Yep. That was a blast to do that. So yeah, we have a lot of roots here and a lot of things we've done here.
Yeah.
Before I went out to, even from a community service, I launched a group called 4D Crew, teaching young kids entrepreneurial skills, kids that were, had questionable backgrounds.
Sure.
But we got the Mayor Hood involved with that at the time, Glinda Hood, the police chief, Foley and Lardner, Nations Bank, to tell you how far back that goes.
Yeah.
They gave us 6,000 square foot of office space for training, gave it to us. And Disney. Dick Nunes came on board and helped us with that, and the Orlando Magic. Matter of fact, I started that. The first person I called was Pat Williams. I called him first and said, listen, I have an idea to do this. And Pat said, that's a great idea. Go for it, and we'll support it.
That's one thing I wanted to touch with you on. I know you're running low on time, but the charity side of what you do. It took me, I was probably 25 or 26 before I ever even really got involved in that side when it comes to the state of Florida. But it changed me. Is it similar for you, and why you continue? Because you got a lot of endeavors. It was right before the pandemic. We were working on that, the one you had out in the airport over on,
Yeah. So the charity side is a passion for a couple of reasons. Just helping and being good human beings and good stewards to our neighbor is a passion for our family. It's a family charity. My mother is the executive director of it. My sister, my niece, my wife, and myself. So it's a family business.
Wow.
One of the initiatives is child abuse awareness. Because we have experienced that in our family.
Right.
Stepfather used to beat the shit out of me. So, and you put that away, which I did. I put that away, and then as I got older, I couldn't put it away. I'm like, okay, I'm not helping. I'm one of the reasons that it's still
continues.
a problem, because you're not talking about it.
Interesting way to look at it. Something that you buried maybe for unhealthily, maybe for a little while, turned out to be something that you wanted to help others not experience.
Yeah, exactly right. Because I think it's a fixable issue.
Sure.
If communication, dialogue
seems to be the answer to a lot of our issues.
So if you bury it and you don't talk about it, well, then you're giving a lot of power to the people that are sexually abusing, physically abusing, mentally abusing, all of it. They're getting away with it if people aren't talking about it.
Right. Interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. So I had enough of not talking about it because I was worried about what people were going to think about me, or I'm worried about how it's going to, affect my reputation with what I'm doing in business, and all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's another one for kids is you want people to think highly of you, but you also don't want to care in some cases what people think.
Well, that's the truth.
It's a tricky part.
There goes back. We were talking about peeling back, things about ourselves.
Right.
Well, that's part of me.
Yeah.
So being honest with that side and realizing, if you get out there and talk about it and you can do something to bring some attention to this, why aren't you doing it?
Sure.
So that's passion for me. Like if everything went away, we can always help, whether we give our time, for those that are able to help in financial ways.
Right.
Even during the pandemic, our charity was feeding ER, Advent, Orlando regional, 33rd, the officers, and we were doing that with local commissioners. Myra, Commissioner Uribe.
Yeah.
We did that with her at 33rd.
Wow.
Commissioner Barnes, Bakari Barnes. We did the hospitals with, and then my mother got COVID.
Did she really?
She did. She got COVID, scared us to death, and we were able to call our commissioner, and the hospitals that we were feeding really took care of my mom.
Wow.
Who knew?
Yeah. How's she doing?
She's great.
Yeah. Came out.
Yeah. She's
good.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Wow. Good to hear.
Yeah, it was months ago.
Good to hear.
She's great.
Yeah.
Thank God. She didn't have to go on a ventilator or anything.
Yeah.
She did have to. She was there 10 days.
In the hospital 10 days. Wow.
Scared the dickens out of
I
us.
bet, man.
Yeah, but she's great.
But those relationships that you had helped you get through that scary time, I bet.
Yes.
You know? Wow.
Yeah, being able to lean on folks,
Yeah.
That we had helped, specifically the ER departments.
Wow.
The very people that had to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
So that turned out to be a blessing.
Did you ever think you'd see a pandemic like this?
Never.
No.
Never.
Has it affected you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We lost 2 family members in New York.
Wow.
A number of family members got it. But thank God we didn't lose anyone else.
Yeah.
And being locked down was interesting.
Yeah.
But I think everything happens for a reason. I know through this period, or through that period when lockdown happened, there were some really cool things that came out of it.
Right.
Our family, we sat down at the table and had dinner together.
Yeah.
We put down our cell phones and our mobile devices and spoke to each other. We started tucking our daughter in and praying with her every night. So we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
Playing games and watching shows and getting to know each other differently. So there were some really good things that came out of it.
Sure.
I studied and got my real estate license, although I had to wait till I had to keep an eye on when they opened up, the locations
To be able to take the test and stuff.
Test.
Yeah.
But I got my real estate license. I structured my business a little bit differently to increase its profitability. And
Well, you had some time to think, and I think maybe that opened up different thought processes for you.
So it is horrible, and it is horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
As the pandemic has been for hundreds of thousands of families and businesses and all of the loss that has taken place. God's been good to us.
Yeah.
And that universe,
Right.
Being able to lean on our spiritual journey and his presence in our life has made a huge difference for us. And that's been cool.
Wow. Yeah. My hope would be that at the end of this, if there is an end, to this whole pandemic thing we're going through, that people come out better on the other end. And it doesn't necessarily feel like that, but I think, me personally, talking to people more and doing more things where we're having open communication, that's for me at least a way to start in my own universe to make sure that we come out of this better. Because like you, I learned a lot of positive things during the lockdown. It led me to change my 15-year career to a completely different detour. And you knew some of the reasons of why I wasn't happy when I met you in my turn time. But I tell you, for me, I'm the happiest I've ever been. Nice. And that's all I want for other people, is to figure out what that means in life.
Nice. Well, look, if we take care of our universe, and we be the best that we can be for the universe, then I don't think it's that complicated. If we're honest with ourselves, because we just have more in common with each other than not.
We're all people.
there's stop fighting over things that we can't control. I
Right.
can't control the color of my skin. You can't control the color of yours.
Right.
What I can control is the respect that I show you as a human being,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Right.
I know you want the best for your children. You know, I want the best for mine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do anything that affects you and your family.
Right.
You know, if we just look at those common ground things that we have together,
Yeah.
and stop paying attention to the differences. Come on, man. Can't we
Yeah.
all just get along?
Can't we all just get along? Wouldn't that be the end goal? You know, that
Exactly.
should be a good end goal.
Exactly. And have and go out and enjoy life. Go
Yeah.
out and, you know, and do something fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen,
How's your
Lowell.
family?
Oh, my family's doing good. Family's doing
Good.
good. My son's playing football. Daughter's doing good. Wife's doing good. Working
Good.
hard. Everybody's doing good. You know, it's been a blessing to have a family. It wasn't something I ever thought, you know, in my earlier years that I would have, or something that I'd be sitting here, you know, being 33 now and be like, man, the family's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. But
Yeah.
they truly have been. It's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Really straightened me out, you know, and made me realize what truly is important in life. And for me, I was chasing money for way too long, man.
Yeah.
You know, I got to make more money, got to have this, got to have that, for all the wrong reasons. And now it's time. Time for me is more valuable than money, and they taught me that. My family taught me that.
See, I know we've talked about that as well, and that was another reason it was time for me to come home. You know, chasing money is not, it's not what's important. You know, and I'm so grateful to not be in a position where I have to go chase money. You know, and be selective with how I want to spend my time.
Sure.
And where I spend my time. And the most important part of that is with my family. I'm
Right.
so excited that I pick my daughter up every day from
Yeah,
school.
me
I never,
too, man.
you know, I
too.
never was able to do that.
Right.
You know, so my wife takes her in the morning. I pick her up,
Yeah.
you know, every day.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
whatever I fit in before this
Yeah.
is what I fit in.
It's funny you say that, because I do a lot of fishing. You know,
Yeah.
I've been filming a lot of fishing. People are like, what, are you just fishing all the time? I'm like, well, I fish when my kids are in school.
Right.
That block of time they're in school is literally the only time I fish. I don't fish on weekends, you know, so I can spend that more time with them. I'm fortunate where I take them and pick them up, man.
Yeah.
It's been life changing.
Yeah.
It's been life changing the more time, because there was a time I was gone, you know, 280 nights in a hotel.
That's crazy, right?
No, I don't miss that. In
I
the
don't
slightest.
either.
Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah.
You know, traveling all over the country
Oh.
and, you know.
Cool for a minute.
It is.
You know, cool for a minute.
Everything has its limits.
Sure.
You know, no matter
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Right.
You know, there's only so many games you can go to. After
Yeah.
a while, you're sitting there like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to keep yourself occupied,
Right.
you know, looking around stadiums and arenas, and
Yeah.
everything has its limits.
Yeah. And I think some people don't realize that, or it's too late.
Yeah.
That some things have their limits.
Yeah.
And maybe you should move past them. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's hard for people to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, man, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. Anything that we
enjoyed
didn't
this.
cover that you maybe want to say, or
Yeah, you know, no.
Okay.
Like, you know, the reason I was so excited about this, and I told you kind of before we started, is no preconceived.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to be a conversation with a buddy.
Yeah.
You know, somebody that I have respect for and admire and really do enjoy talking to.
Well, thank you.
Because I don't think there haven't been anything off limit with us.
Sure.
You know, that
Yeah. We didn't sit down
Let's not
beforehand
go
and say,
there.
talk about
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Let's not go there. You know,
Yeah.
let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And you know, I've enjoyed what we have talked about.
Me
you
too.
know, so no, I think we've I really enjoyed this conversation.
So did I. Yeah, I keep saying this about you, that we have some of the best conversations, but this one will be up there.
I can't wait to watch it back.
Ah, there you go, man. Well, thanks for doing this, and if you ever want, we'll do it again, my man.
For sure.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
There we go.
That's
There you
awesome,
go.
man.
How was that? Let's see.
Yeah!
Recording.